is a Get a Grip workshop led by Dr. Frank Harper. Dr. Frank Harper is a former high school and college scholar athlete, U.S. Congressional Advisory Board State Advisor, football coach, City of Atlanta Deputy Commissioner, Georgia School Age Care Association Board member, and Towers High School Council Vice Chairperson, a product of an inner city red zone in New Haven, Connecticut, neighbor of mine, I'm a New Yorker myself. Dr. Harper earned a PhD from Columbia Commonwealth University, an MBA in marketing, Master of Science and Bachelor of Science, all from the University of New Haven. He has delivered his Change, Create a Healthy and New Growth to Excellence message to millions throughout the United States, Asia, Pacific, Middle East, and Europe. His epic book is Agile Leadership with a Grip. Dr. Harper believes that leaders are born to be made and every child deserves a chance. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Frank Harper.
Good afternoon. I like that. That was a really, really great, tough act to follow, Mr. Rossi. Thank you for setting a standard of greatness. I'm really excited to be here because this is the first opportunity to share my brand of leadership with black males. Most of the people I speak to are, corporate America. I travel the globe, lecturing at various universities, talking about this leadership style. Everyone wants to know, what is a strategic hustler? What is a strategic hustler? And so what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about falling into the theme of this expo. You are empowered for a reason. You're empowered to be successful. And so what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about the building blocks to success. And then you're all going to contribute and help me understand what happens when those building blocks aren't there in place. Then we're going to talk about the mindset, the attitude of a person in order to achieve success in the 21st century. And then I'm going to talk about the behaviors. I'm going to talk about behavior traits in terms of patterns. I'm going to talk about those patterns as they apply to leadership behaviors. And then I'm going to talk about management best practices. And it all falls into developing an entrepreneur state of mind. You'll find that I like to make up words. Okay, becoming a 21st century strategic hustler, a 21st century strategic hustler leadership behavior framework. Now, in order to achieve success in the 21st century, there are certain behaviors that you need to have. Okay, you have to have adaptable behavior. You have to have goal-oriented behavior, intelligent behavior, learning behavior, effective behavior. You have to look to change and challenge the status quo. You have to energize people with ever greater challenges. You have to acknowledge a burning platform. You have to deliver results with effective delegation. You have to exhibit emotional energy and edge. You have to respect diversity. You have to sustain success by achieving excellence. You have to have a teachable point of view. You have to introduce ideas based on uplifting values. You have to persevere through persistence. And once you do those, you are basically being flexible, you're being upfront, but now you have to be in control. And that's where the grip comes into play. That is, you have to manage your goals, you have to manage your resources, you have to manage your interfaces, and you have to manage your performance. Without being in control, everything else that you're going to hear today throughout this expo that's what it's going to fall right off your back. I like to begin with a couple of my favorite quotes. The only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be. By Ralph Waldo Emerson. Now, I teach at Cambridge Corporate University, which is in Switzerland. And the uniqueness about that school is I don't teach Americans. Okay? Most of my students are from the Middle East, Scandinavia, Europe, Asia, Asia Pacific, and Africa. And so I have to be mindful of the fact that what I'm talking about is from a Western perspective. They live in the Eastern world. And so what I tell each of them is that you know far more than you know you know. Never ask, can I do this? Ask instead, how can I do this? And so I'm going to be sharing some behavioral concepts with you, and ask yourself, how do I do this? How do I do this? There's my agenda. I'll talk briefly about myself, and then I will dive into my global initiative called Change. And then I'll take you on a journey, and we'll learn about what is a strategic hustler. And then we'll look at the framework. Agile framework, leadership framework, and a grip framework. And then I'll have any questions that you may have, I will answer them. This is my background. Currently, I'm a strategic hustler, CEO, professor, senior academic board member. Okay. My area of expertise is technology, science, technology, engineering, and math. This is my experience, 35 years doing this. These are all the various roles that I've had. My focus is on leadership. This is my education. And this is the most important. My MPA is most important. Accomplishments. First generation strategic hustle. I'm the first person to graduate from my family, the first one to graduate from high school from my family, and also the first one to graduate from college. Uplifting of thousands of leaders. I have 22 years as a football coach, in addition to being a corporate trainer, being a senior executive, working in various large corporations, being able to uplift and inspire people. And my success rate is 96%. That means I don't like to lose. Here are just some of the companies that I've been able to hone my craft around the globe. And the leadership behaviors that I'm going to be sharing with you are built in part by growing up in the inner city, participating in sports, working with these various corporations. But what I want you to understand that all I'm doing is giving you a framework. I'm giving you a framework. I may talk about things, from a corporate standpoint, but then also you can take this framework and you can apply it to where you are in life. Because this whole discussion that I'm going to give to you is all about taking your dreams and turning it into your reality. Years ago, I've been working with change initiatives for over 25 years. And there's this big misnomer in people that people don't like to change for various reasons, which I won't talk about here. And so what I did is I came up with this acronym, okay? Change. What does change really mean? Why do you do change? Change is creating a healthy and new growth to excellence. These articles are my experiences here in the metropolitan Atlanta area for over 25 years, working as an entrepreneur, developing, innovative products. And from back in 1990, developed the first online real-time computer system for small businessmen. To recently, after 25 years, they wanted to know where I was, what I was still doing. I was doing this, traveling the globe, okay? Working in Nigeria, working in Pakistan, talking about my transformation message to anyone that would hear, okay? And again, anyone that would hear, whether they were in elementary school, high school, your college, your professional, it's all about change. Let's talk about strategic hustlers. First of all, let me give you the operational definition for a hustler. A hustler is an enterprising person who's determined to succeed. Understand that, okay? A hustler is an enterprising person who's determined to succeed. Now, there are two types of hustlers, okay? There's the street hustler, and then there's the strategic hustler. Now, let me tell you about the street hustler, because the street hustler walks a thin line between socially acceptable ways and means and socially unacceptable ways and means. Growing up in New Haven, Connecticut, I was a street hustler, but I was of socially acceptable ways and means. Well, what do you mean? This is what I did to get my hustle on. I shine shoes. Okay, I shovel snow. In fact, I shovel so much snow, it's one of the reasons why I moved down here to Atlanta. Okay, I did newspapers. Okay, I sold newspapers. I played sports. And then I went to Yale University. I went to Yale University from the 5th grade to the 11th grade. So that was my street hustle. Now, let's look at the other side. Where I grew up in inner city red zone, and for those of you who may not know what a red zone is, that's when what the police do is they identify the most highly crime-ridden areas in the city, and they give that a red mark. That's where they focus their energy at, okay? But I could walk 10 minutes and be on the campus of one of the most prestigious universities in the world, in Yale University. And so I got a chance to see both sides of the fence. Now, let me talk about the street hustler with the socially unacceptable ways and means, without diving into too much graphics. Okay, your end result is either you're going to wind up in prison, you're going to wind up dead, okay, or you're going to wind up, you're doing things that you don't want to be doing. Okay, that's the difference. So it's all right to be a street hustler. It's all right to be a street hustler. Just know that there are socially acceptable ways of doing that, and then there's socially unacceptable ways of doing that. Now, let's talk about the strategic hustler. Okay, let's talk about the strategic hustler. The strategic hustler, their whole mindset is built upon pride. And when I talk about pride, I'm talking about they have a passion for what they do. They respect themselves and others. There is integrity. And when I talk about integrity, I'm not talking about doing the right thing. Integrity is more than that, and I'll talk about that later. There's discipline. There's discipline. We've heard it a number of times in the film, in the talks. You have to have discipline. I have a friend that wrote a book on project management, and the beauty of the book is the language was from a very high level, and it brought it down to a level where youth could understand it. And there was this chapter in there entitled, "You Gotta Wanna or You Ain't a Gonna." Okay? You gotta wanna or you ain't a gonna. Okay? That's what discipline is all about. So you can sit here and we can tell you give you all this great information, but again, at the end of the day, you gotta wanna or you ain't a gonna. Because that will lead into the E of pride. That is execution. You gotta do it. You gotta do it. So again, we have a strategic hustler. Their whole mindset is focused on pride. It's also empathy, not sympathy, empathy for people. And then they have what I call the strategic cousins. That is, you have a strategic attitude, you have a strategic aptitude, and you have a strategic altitude. You have a strategic attitude, you have a strategic aptitude, and a strategic altitude to turn your dreams into your reality. Now, what I want to do is I want to talk about the attitude, because your attitude determines your what? Altitude. I've worked for a number of companies, and I'm going to talk about companies because an organization cannot be what its people aren't. Okay? An organization cannot be what its people aren't. So when you look at attitude, there are three components of one's attitude. There's strategy, posture, and culture. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's look at the Apple computer. When I say strategy here, their approach is they want to design the best design in terms of their computers at a premium price and they want to be out there in front. They want to be new world thinking. Okay? Their posture, okay, they're proactive. Proactive, in other words, they want to stay ahead of the curve. They want to innovate. Their culture is innovation. That is, they're marked by a willingness to take risks with long-term view, designing products and services before consumers know that they need them. Let's look at Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola wants to produce consistently superior beverage, and they want superior marketing. Their posture is reactive, proactive. That is, fast follow, deploying overwhelming resources to co-opt others' innovation. In other words, they'll let someone else do it in that industry. They'll let someone else come out with a new product. And then once they see that new product, then they turn on their wheels and say, okay, we're going to come up with something better, and we're going to throw more marketing at it, okay, and then we're going to overtake them. Culture, discipline. Discipline. That is a strong central control so that Coca-Cola beverages taste the same everywhere and every time. How many of you have gone to McDonald's? And how many of you have eaten their fries at different places? Now, they're supposed to taste the same. Is that true? Okay, well, they failed that, huh? Okay. Let's look at the Red Cross. The Red Cross. Their strategy is best delivery with emphasis on tactical flexibility. Their posture is proactive, reactive. That is, they pre-position resources to respond quickly when needed. Well, they try to. They try to. Okay? Their culture is perseverance, marked by a deep commitment to purpose, purposeful making people willing to hurry up and wait over and over and over again. So they're there to serve. They're there to serve. They may not get it right, but they're there to serve. Okay, now let's look at the Ritz-Carlton in terms of strategy. Okay. Best support. They want to give you the best support. They want to empower each employee to go do whatever it takes for the guests. Posture, reactive. They respond to their attendants' needs. And flexibility in pursuit of extraordinary guest appearance. So again, when you look at yourself, okay, wherever you are in elementary school, you're going to have your strategy, posture, and culture. What is your strategy? What is your strategy? What is your posture? Okay, am I going to be out in front? In other words, am I going to have to wait for the teacher to tell me to do something before I do it? Okay? You could be reactive, proactive. The teacher tells you, and now you know, and so now the next time they don't have to tell you. You can be proactive, reactive. Go out there and start it, and if you make a mistake, learn from it. Start all over again. No one really fails. You just find ways that don't work. And then reactive. Now, I've heard time and time again when people talk about your goals, your dreams, take your dreams and write them down as goals, and and it sort of ends there. Okay? I want to add what I call the strategic hustler's creed. Okay? A dream written down with a what? A date becomes a goal. If you don't have a date, you don't have a goal. A goal broken down into what? Becomes a path. And a plan backed by your what? Makes your dreams come true. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is Project Management 101. Now let's talk about this entrepreneur state of mind. What is entrepreneurship? I'm on this kick of innovation. I'm on this kick of innovation. Add that to entrepreneurship. That gives you entrepreneurship. So in other words, you have to think outside the box. Let me give you some examples. How many of you heard of Uber? Thought outside the box. How about Cirque du Soleil? Okay. Southwest Airline. So again, you have to be innovative. You have to be innovative. To be an entrepreneur, just to be an entrepreneur, okay, you want longevity. You want longevity. In fact, this is a term that I first heard. One thing you learn as you stay in education long enough is no one really comes up with something new. You just refine it. And I actually heard this term when I was in Germany, attending a conference. Now I want to talk about what's called value innovation and blue ocean strategy. Okay, blue ocean strategy, value innovation. Okay. First, let me talk about red ocean strategy. And I'll use the audience as an example. Let's suppose we had a widget. Okay. We produce a widget, and let's say this first row had already put that widget out on the market. Okay. And they own 90% of the market. And now the rest of you all, okay, you have a reactive posture. You look at what they're doing and say, okay, now let's see where we can make our product a little bit better. With me? Okay. Now you get involved with the market. Okay. Now, mind you, a little bit better. Okay, and then the next row, they look at what you guys are doing and say, okay, now let's make our product just a little bit better. And then the next row and the next row, so you make it a little bit better. But eventually you're going to reach what's called law of diminishing returns. And so your whole strategy becomes cutthroat. Hence, you have a red ocean. Now, what the blue ocean does is they come up with strategies like Uber, like Cirque du Soleil, that make their competition irrelevant. How do they do that? Very simple. Whatever you buy, okay, whatever you're selling to a company, you have to have a value proposition. Each one of you have to have a value proposition. And let me explain something. It doesn't have to be to a company. Eventually, all of you are going to be applying to college. What's your value proposition? If you want to apply to Morehouse, where they accept the best of the best, what's your value proposition? Okay? And so when you look at that, okay, your value proposition is either you want to increase, if there's no value, you want to create value. If there's value there already, you want to raise the value. Whatever it is. But the flip side of that is that you don't want to create value or raise value and then give it a price that nobody wants to buy it or nobody can afford it. So the key is to look at the cost and say, okay, what can I eliminate or what can I reduce in that particular product or service? The intersection, that's value innovation. Okay, what it is. What it is. Whether it's a product or service, when you get value innovation, I'm going to give you my number. Give me a call. Because now you're dabbling in blue oceans. And that's what innovation is all about. That's what innovation is all about. I mean, you look at Facebook. When Facebook initially went public, they said, well, that's not a good deal. It's not going to last long. Why? Because there was no marketing. And then they brought in that CEO and says, wait a minute, let's look at the value proposition. What do we bring? Now, for those of us who are on Facebook, that's all they talk about, how to market in Facebook. And what has the stock done? That stock for that gentleman's made him a multi-billionaire. Now, I've laid some background here. Now I want to talk about what does it take in order to make that happen? What types of behaviors do you need to make that happen? So we're going to talk about the strategic hustler framework. There are 3 qualities to being a strategic hustler. Be flexible, be upfront, and be in control. Just that simple. If you forget anything else that I talked about today, I got to be flexible, I got to be upfront, and I need to be in control. That leads into my book, Agile Leadership with a Grip. Okay. And if you notice at the bottom here, okay, a 21st century journey from street hustler to strategic hustler. And these pictures here are stories that appear in this book, and I'd like to share with you those stories. This young lady here, okay, Dr. Yamil Jackson, is from Bogota, Colombia. She came over to this country at a very, very young age, and she went to school, got her master's, a PhD, worked for a number of companies, and she developed a product for newborns, okay, for newborns. And what the base product basically does is that when you have preemies, they respond, they develop better when they have their parents' touch. Okay, instead of putting them in the incubator, okay, what she does, she has this product that the parent can rub, sort of wash their hand, their body with it, and then put it on the baby. So when and of course they have to dry it, so that when they're not at the hospital, okay, they can take this blanket and put it on the baby. And what has happened, it shows that the baby's physical maturity, development increases tremendously. Here she was honored by Oprah Winfrey. And I joked with her and said, listen, I discovered you first before Oprah did. Okay? Here I am pictured with a team of engineers, strategists with one of the largest banks in Madrid, Spain. And again, as we see here, we have a gentleman from Vietnam, from China, from Germany. Again, these individuals here were responsible for helping implement a project with a budget of over $740 million. Here I am sitting with the president of the Pakistan Security Association, and he's talking to me about what they call information and communication technologies, which are they're initiatives that are eventually in place, are being put in place to help Pakistan communicate across the country, but also with the outside world in a more seamless and cost-effective manner. Here, I'm pictured with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Serenus Columbi from India. And the beauty of this company is that all of these people are chemical engineers. And the beauty of this company is that what we did is we took wood. We took wood and we converted it into sugar. Okay. So you may have heard of alternative energies and those kinds of things. Okay, that's what this company did. Here, this gentleman and I, we went to the same high school, James Hill House High School. We played football in different eras. We both were all-state, went to college. But this gentleman here, he went to Syracuse University. And he in turn broke all of, if you all heard of Jim Brown and Ernie Davis. In fact, he was responsible for bringing in helping recruit Ernie Davis to Syracuse. Here he's just recently voted into National Football League Professional Hall of Fame. And so here he's at the high school, and again, he shares his leadership stories. Last but not least, here I am pictured with the senior management team of Pakistan Petroleum Limited Corporation. In addition to that, because of this book provides such a real-life, down-to-earth, practical modern behavior framework, I teach this course to MBA and PhD students from the various regions that are going to Cambridge Corporate University, and my book is the chosen reading material. So now let's look at Agile. Here's a more formal presentation on the behaviors that I talked about: adaptable behavior, goal-oriented behavior, intelligent behavior, learning behavior, and effective behavior. I talked about the building blocks of success. Let's look at the top, because these are all the building blocks. That is, you need to have a vision. You need to have an actionable strategy. You need to have capabilities, incentives, resources, some type of sense of urgency. When you have all of these things, you have success. Now, what I'm going to need you all to do is focus on, I'm going to move down each row, okay? And I want you to identify just the ones that are in yellow, okay? What it does is, I want you to understand that when certain of those building blocks are missing, you don't get success, you get something else. Okay? So let's look at this row. If what is missing? Vision is lacking, what do you get? You have no strategy? Come on, come on, come on, come on. What do you have? So whatever you're trying to do to be successful, and for whatever reason it's not happening for you, I don't care what you're doing, okay? You need to go back to this. You need to go back to this. This applies not only at a corporate level, but it also applies to you as students. The G talks about goal-oriented behavior. Goal-oriented behavior, and here I want to talk about what I call the 10 goals of success. Now, this gentleman, I used to work for him before I came here to Georgia at General Electric. And he's had a profound statement. Before you are a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others. And so you all are at points in your life where you're growing yourself. And so you have what they call these 10 goals of success. Now, what I'm going to do is sometimes I forget those, okay? So I'm going to empower you all to help me remember and talk about them. So in your books, okay, you've got something called the 10 goals of success. And so what I want you to do is I want you to give me a holler out a goal. Let's go from 1 to 10, and I'll share something about that goal with you. So what's the first goal? Know the terrain. That is, get an education. Whatever you want to do, you need to understand what it is that you're getting yourself into. If you want to get into the music business, study music. If you want to be an engineer, get involved with the STEM program. Okay. If you want to be a football coach, then you need to learn how to be a football coach. So again, know the terrain. Understand what it is that you need to be getting into, and so therefore you have to do what? Get a what? Education. Okay, what's the second one? What was that? Seize the opportunity. Seize the opportunity. Well, if you don't know the terrain, how can you seize the opportunity? If you don't know the terrain, how can you seize the opportunity? You can't. What's the third one? Find a mentor. How many times have you heard that today? How many of you have a mentor? Let me ask you again. How many of you don't have a mentor? You have a pencil? Piece of paper? Take this number down. 404 551 7690. Now you got one. Dr. Frank Harper. That's right. 404 551 7690. Now you have one. Now, let me just say this. I aspire to greatness. So if you're afraid of being great, give me a call. If you want to be great and you have some problems, give me a call. What was the next one? Radiate zeal. Be excited about what you're doing. For example, I'm sitting here and Mr. Rossi, we sat here and we're still here and we give these presentations. And one thing that you can say about us is that we are very passionate about what we're doing. There is zeal there. We honestly want to be here. What if I got up here and there was no inflection in my voice and I was just boring? I may be boring right now, but what if I was just boring? Okay, you go to sleep. So whatever it is you're involved with, radiate zeal. Because if you're not excited about it, guess what? Nobody else is going to be excited about it. What's the next one? Work with tenacity. Growing up in New Haven, Connecticut, working in the projects, I had an uncle that also lived in the projects in Barrington, Connecticut, a little older than me. And just like most folks, they like to go see their grandma. And so I go see grandma, and he said, "No, nephew, you're doing some really nice things, and all that stuff there, and I don't want you to get in trouble." He said, "I'm going to show you how to get your hustle on." Okay? I said, "Huh? To get your hustle on?" He said, "Yes. And remember when I told you one of my hustles was shining shoes? He gave me a green shoe shine box. A green shoe shine box, and taught me how to shine shoes. And so with that, once I learned how to shine shoes, and I had to get past develop the confidence to say, "Shine, sir, shine, ma'am, shine, sir, shine, ma'am," because there were a lot of no's there. But once I got past that, it was on. It was on. So you take that same lesson and you apply it to life. Work with tenacity. That's what a strategic hustler does. Non-strategic hustlers, they just do it. Strategic hustlers, do it. Next one. Deliver mind-boggling service. Whatever you do, knock it outside the park. I'd like to introduce you to what I call the trilogy of success. There are 3 things that you must do to stay relevant. 3 things that you must do to stay relevant in your careers in life. The first thing is that whatever you do, you have to exceed your customers' expectations. And even where you are right now, your customer is your teacher. Whatever they tell you to do, you need to knock it out the park. The second thing is that you always have to reinvent yourself. You see all those roles that I had? All those different companies that I worked in? Constantly reinventing myself. Constantly reinventing myself. The third thing is to understand that wherever you go in life, you have to get in where you fit in. Because wherever you go, that has its own social structure. I come from a Christian background. I go to countries like Pakistan, which is an Islamic republic. And I stand before audiences deep, hundreds and hundreds of deep. And they listen to what I'm saying. Why? Why? First of all, I respect who they are, what they do. I don't pass judgment. And going into the 21st century, I want you to understand this. Understand this, okay? You must understand that, if you heard, someone said it in that bring your A game. When you're going after a job, you got other folks from the other side of the world going after the same job. Well, let me just tell you this. I'm in Pakistan. I'm on one of the universities, and you have the kids. They walk around, they have the same problems here with the droopy draws, okay, but they do their praying. They do their praying. But let me tell you something. They're focused. They're focused on getting a job. They're focused on, if they can't get a job in their country, they want to get out of their country and come to the United States. So it's a whole new different ball game. Hence, you all must bring your A game. What's the next one? Build a team. Okay. Let me stop right there, okay? Remember what the gentleman said. He said that the first part of your career is really you focus on building yourself. So that's the first 6. Those first 6 are focused on you, okay? If you don't do a good job of those first 6, then you'll never be able to do number 7. Because you are the role model. The speed of the leader, the speed of the group. If you're building a team, they're going to look at you. You have to set the example. And understand that some people will make the journey, some people should make the journey, and some people won't make the journey. But you'll only be able to do that, make those decisions, if you honed yourself on those first 6. So 7 is building a team. What's the next one? What was that? I'm going to introduce you to 2 words: effectiveness and efficiency. Effectiveness is whatever the requirements that you're supposed to do, meeting those. Whatever the requirements are. You get a homework assignment, you got to get that homework assignment done, do it. Okay? That's being effective. You can't be efficient without being effective. Okay? You have to be effective first. Now, once you're effective and you know the assignment, you know the topic, now when you have to do the next one, you can do a little bit, you can be a lot more efficient with it. That is, maybe you will write something a little bit differently. You will do things a little bit differently. From a business standpoint, what they do is they look at resources and decide, well, maybe we don't need these resources. So hence, you have a whole lot of outsourcing, or you have a whole lot of job layoffs. What's the next one? Notch it upward and onward. That is, continue to challenge yourself. Continue to challenge yourself. Again, aspire to greatness. Aspire to greatness. Set goals for yourself. Okay, I got an A on this exam. Okay, that's great. Now I'm going to try to get an A on this exam. Or I got an A in this course. Okay, well now let me try to get an A in this course. Let me try to get an A in this course. And before you know it, I got A's in all my courses. Okay, now let me go and get a 2200 on the SAT. Now you get a 2200 on the SAT. Oh, by the way, now let me go and participate in some school activities. And so I don't care whether it be sports. My kids, they couldn't play sports. So I said, you can do something. So they went to the band. I don't know how to play a horn. I said, so? Fly some wings, learn how. And before you know it, now you're graduating, and now you can apply to a school like a Morehouse. Or you can apply to Ivy League schools. And some of my grown folks in the audience, let's take that in terms of your own professional careers. Set goals for yourself. You achieve one goal, now let's notch it up higher. Maybe going back to college, maybe going and taking some secondary education. What's the last one? I wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for somebody giving some back to me. I get emotional when I do that. And I don't care where I am in the world. I mean, there's no shame in my game. I don't care. I don't care, you know. But again, it's the importance of giving something back. One day, you all, one of you all of you all, because that's what it is, all of you all will be in some place where you can be up on this stage, empowering people. Going to other countries, empowering people. It's amazing how you're being naive on how Facebook works and just following some directions and putting out a Facebook page, realizing how much of an impact your words of wisdom and inspiration will do for the world. I've got a Facebook following of well over 65,000 people. And this is from over 35 countries. And the amazing thing is that some of them may not understand English, but they understand the words. They'll understand the words that I use. So again, it's really important that you give back. Those are your goals. Those are your goals. I put them in your book because I want you to take those goals. I want you to put them up on the wall. Because if you forget anything else, you need to understand those goals. And last but not least, leader of one, leader of many. If you can't lead one, you can't lead any. So you look at those first 6 points. I'm talking about you, developing yourself as a leader. Young folk and grown folk. And once you've developed yourself as a leader, now you can be a leader to others. That's what I'm saying. The I in Agile is intelligent behavior. And I've coined what I call the 6 I's of intelligent behavior. I'm on time. Okay, when we talk about intelligent behavior, I'm going to talk about the 6 I's of intelligent behavior. The first one is innovation. Innovation. Okay. Now, some of you all may sit here and say, well, I can't be innovative. Well, let me explain something to you. We all were created, which means we all have the potential to be creative. And just as you are listening to the words that are coming out of my mouth, you're creating your own ideas about whatever I'm talking about. Either you're going to zone out and go to sleep, or you're going to perk up and say, hey, wait a minute, he's saying some things here. But there's one thing about life, okay? Those who show up are the ones that are going to always be able to show out. I used to tell one of my daughters, I raised 4 daughters, and I also raised 10 godchildren, all of which were most women. And I would tell them, I said, well, if you're going to be with somebody, be with somebody. Okay, what do I mean by that? Okay, just don't be there just to be hanging around. Okay. If they can help improve you, edify you, help you get to your goals, to your vision, then you need to be with that person. If they can't, why waste your time? So again, innovation, insight. Part of being innovative is having insight. Well, you don't have insight if you don't know the terrain. If you don't know the terrain, you can't seize opportunities. You can't seize opportunities. You don't have a mentor. So it all ties together. Initiative. Initiative is the alpha and the omega of success. Initiative is the alpha and omega of success. That is, alpha is that you got to start. See, some people call me a motivational speaker. I'm not a motivational speaker. Now, I'll inspire you, because to be that 21st century strategic hustler that I'm talking about, you have to be a self-motivator. Don't look for people to motivate you. Look for inspiration. So you have to take the initiative. You have to be a self-starter. You have to be a self-starter. And the omega is that you got to be a strong finisher. You have to be a self-starter in the alpha, and then at the end you have to be a strong finisher. Not a successful finisher, a strong finisher. And there's 13 points that I talk about in my book that, that gives you more detail. But one of them is that you got to start something in order to finish it. That's the first thing. You got to start something before you finish it. And then I always say, to be different, it takes guts to lead the ruts. It takes guts to lead the ruts. Influence. Influence. If you are trying to lead an initiative, or you think you're trying to lead an initiative, turn around to see if anybody's following you. If no one is following you, guess what? It's not happening. You have to do what we did today when we had a little technical difficulties. You have to retreat, regroup, and redeploy. Okay, but you have to, part of being a leader is being able to influence people. Even at your age. Because that's when I started. Interpersonal skills. Interpersonal skills. You may hear the term, if you haven't heard the term, emotional intelligence. How many of you heard that term before? Good. Good. Because that's key. That's key. You, at your age, when I was your age, emotional what? So that's great. That's great, because you understand in order to get anywhere in this world, you have to have interpersonal skills. That's what that's all about. You're going to be in a world that is full of diversity. Everybody is not going to look like you. Understand that. Everybody is not going to look like you. And so what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? I know in my career, I'm either the first or the only. I mean, a lot of firsts in my career. A lot of firsts. Integrity. Integrity. I've got something here I wanted to share with integrity, because as I travel around and I ask people about integrity, integrity is more than just being honest. The number one characteristic that people want leaders to demonstrate is integrity. People who walk their talk and lead a life of character. But integrity is more than just simple honesty. It's more than being ethical. Integrity, people with integrity have the rare ability to pull things together, no matter how challenging the circumstances are, to make it happen. That's integrity. I mean, I've met hundreds and hundreds of men and women around the world who were both men and women of integrity. They were honest and ethical people of integrity. Some were and were not making it in some way. Sounds confusing. Let me meddle with those who were not. And I say that because a number of times, I have some, one thing about grown folks is that I've learned that a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. And so when I'm talking to your grown folks, you have to give them information and let them do a self-introspection. And then and by looking at themselves and making an honest opinion about themselves, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Okay? That is integrity. That is having the courage to meet the demands of your reality. That's what integrity is, having the courage to meet the demands of your reality. So you want to be creative. Here are 7 habits of highly effective, creative, and innovative people. They don't give up. They don't give up. They remove self-limiting inhibitions. That is, I don't want to be around nothing or no one that is not going to allow me to achieve my goal. Take risks and make mistakes. Don't be a failure. Escape. Get away when you need to. Go and close your room. Close your room door. Write things down. There's 3 types of memory: long-term, short-term, and pencil and paper. Find patterns and create combinations. Find patterns and create combinations. Hence, you have something like agile leadership with a grip. Curiosity. One of the things that I said when I was coming up with that book and that framework is I call the behaviors world-class leadership behaviors. And I call the management practices that I'm going to talk about best-class management practices. And so in order to prove that, before I started marketing my book in the United States, I shot my manuscript to about 40 countries. 40 countries. And got the input back, okay? And from that, I found patterns, coupled with the findings from my doctoral research. And then I'm teaching at this school where they're required to read my book. Now imagine, I have in my class a person from Israel, a person from Pakistan. Now, if you know anything about Israelis and Pakistan, they don't agree on anything. Okay, they don't agree on anything, but they agreed on the behavior practice that I talked about. Okay, I have people from Africa, Malaysia, Europe, Scandinavia, Poland. So you identify patterns. That was my curiosity. There are young men, your age, that are out there creating the next multi-million-dollar idea. So which one of you are going to come up with a multi-million-dollar idea? I wonder which one of you are going to come up with the next multi-million-dollar idea? Because that's why I'm here talking. Okay, and I'm talking about something that's going to have worldly, global impact. I like that. And to quote Thomas Edison, I have not failed, I just found 10,000 ways that won't work. So nobody fails. Again, I talked about integrity. When you don't have integrity, these are the things that you cannot do. You don't have trust. You can't see realities because your blind spots. What do I mean by that? That is, someone comes to you and tries to tell you something, and you say, well, listen, I already know that. I don't care about it. Don't tell me. I know all I need to know. I had to learn that the hard way until I was put on a project at $2.2 billion in Nigeria and had to take over for a company that that was from China, and the project had just run amok. And so I got 50 people looking at me. I'm in a boardroom, and they have very strong personalities. And they asked me, okay, and they asked me, oh, what are you going to do this, and all this kind of, and I said, okay, hold up, wait a minute. Okay, what are you doing differently now that you didn't do differently before, now that you know that you have all these problems? It's amazing when you turn around and you have to ask people for their input. You know, either they'll step up to the table or they'll just sit back and whittle around and say, water seeks its own level. Okay? Deal with people problems. Create growth in their organization. Get themselves out of their own way. Again, when you lack integrity, when you lack the courage to meet the demands of your reality, this is what you fall into. Attitude is much lower than your aptitude. Remember I talked about strategic what? The strategic cousins. What were the strategic cousins? Come on, speak up. I can't hear you.
Altitude, aptitude, and altitude.
There you go. That's right. Exactly. For those of you, it's a strategic attitude, strategic aptitude, and strategic altitude. And so what I'm saying here is that your performance altitude is much lower than your aptitude. That is, you know a lot more than you know, but for whatever reason, you're not applying it. Obstacles are situations that derail them. Okay, I'm going to sit up here and I've built 3 multi-million-dollar businesses. And they all failed. But you know something? I'm still standing. I'm still standing. Yeah. And that's the most important thing is, and there's reasons to that. There's reasons to that, but again, at the end of the day, when you have the courage to meet your demands of your own reality, that is, when you have integrity, you stop pointing the finger. You start looking at yourself. And guess what? Because of those circumstances, I lead a whole lot more differently now than I did before. I'm in control. Reaching great success only to self-destruct. That's what I'm talking about. Because if I did it once, I did it twice, I did it 3 times. I mean, I've done it tons of times to other corporations. I'll do it again. And I'm doing it again. But let me just say this, because I normally don't talk about money. I don't talk about money because leadership, I'm talking about leadership. Leadership is not about money. Understand that. Leadership is not about how much money you make. Leadership is about how many people you help. That's what leadership is all about. Help people and the money will come. Now we're going to talk about leadership. Now I talked about this real quickly at the beginning of my presentation, but I'm just going to go through these real quick. Again, being up front. I got 1 minute. So when we look at look to change and challenge the status quo. Look to change and challenge the status quo. I said, look. That don't mean you have to go try to change it because it may not be changed. It may not need changing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Energize people with ever greater challenges. If you can't energize yourself, you're not going to be able to energize others. Acknowledge a burning platform. Acknowledge a burning platform. There are many, many projects in corporate America. For those of you who work in corporate America, you work on ERP projects. None of those things come in on time or within the budget. None of them. Deliver results through effective delegation. As great as the synaptical brilliance of your brain cells may be, you can't do it all by yourself. So you have to look at whatever has to be done and decide, what am I going to let drop? What am I going to defer? What am I going to delegate? And what am I going to do? Exhibit emotional energy and edge. If you want to create a sense of urgency, which is one of the building blocks of being success, you need to be able to tell a compelling story to others. You need to tell a compelling story to yourself on why you need to change a course of action. Respect diversity. Respect diversity, emotional intelligence, that all ties in together. That is, you're going to be in a world where people don't look like you, they don't act like you, they don't believe the things that you do. But you still got to get along. Sustain success by achieving excellence. All I can say with that is don't stop, get it, get it. Have a teachable point of view. Now, that's the key to being a leader. You've noticed the presentations that you've heard, we've started off, we've always told a story about our own personal experiences. What does that do? That brings reality to it. So eventually, that's what you all are going to have to do. What's the point of having a point of view and you can't teach anybody with it? Introduce ideas based on uplifting values. We talked about goal setting. There's two types of goals. There's what I call quantum goals, and there's what I call incremental goals. Your quantum goals are your big, bold, audacious goals. You need to set those so that you can have incremental goals. And last but not least, persistence with perseverance. Never give up. Never give up. And last but not least, you can be adaptable, goal-oriented, intelligent, learning, effective. You can look to change the challenge, the status quo. You can energize people with ever greater challenges. You can acknowledge a burning platform. You can deliver results through effective delegation. You can exhibit emotional energy and edge. You can respect diversity. You can sustain success by excellence. You can have a teachable point of view. You can introduce ideas based on uplifting values. You can persevere through perseverance. In other words, you can be flexible. You can be upfront. But if you're not in control, it's not going to happen. And so that's what GRIP is all about. That's what GRIP is all about. You can have all those things in place, but if you're not in control of what you're doing, that is managing your goals, managing resources, managing interfaces, managing performance, it's not going to happen for you. Now, I talk about and I give you tools and techniques and how to do that. Practical and applicable tools and techniques. And how do I manage my goals? How do I manage my resources? How do I manage my interfaces? I thought interfaces were great because when I was in Nigeria and I was working on a refinery. And so I was watching the change of shifts. And so my concern was the people that were leaving, were not communicating with the people that were incoming in terms of what's the state of the plant. Okay, when you look at your tragedies like the Valdez in BP, okay, when you go and you look at those, that's what the problem was. Nobody knew anything. More importantly, medical professions, doctors. We don't communicate. Doctors don't communicate. There's no collaboration. That's what interface management is all about. And then at the end of the day, you remember say, you got to perform. You got to perform. Or whomever it is that you're delegating the work to, you've got to make sure that they're performing. I used to work, when I was a deputy chief information officer for the city of Atlanta, I worked with the Atlanta Police Department. And I had the opportunity to meet with the former police chief, Elgin Bale. And he said something that was very profound to me. He said, you always have to inspect what you expect. Okay? You always have to inspect what you expect. And all I talked about, being that 21st century strategic hustler, is delivering intelligent solutions. Why? First of all, innovation. Our future is on innovation. That's why I make a point of putting in that entrepreneurship. Being an entrepreneur is not enough. You've got to look at innovation. Insight. The 21st century, human beings confront a daunting array of problems that demand new solutions. We have climate changes, global pandemics, failed states, narco crime, terrorism, nuclear proliferation, environment degradation. Meeting these challenges requires us to invent new innovative systems. And to add salt into the wound, okay, these problems are both multidimensional and multi-jurisdictional. Initiative. Get out of your feelings and get into the game. Get out of your feelings and get into the game. Bring your A game. The alpha and omega of success. Initiative. Influence. Turn around and look. In other words, inspect what you expect. If you're expecting people to follow your lead, make sure they are. Interpersonal skills. Leader of one, leader of many. If you can't lead one, you can't lead any. integrity, having the courage to meet the demands of your reality. And I want you to remember, from Mr. Booyah himself, okay? Don't downgrade your dream just to fit your reality. Upgrade your conviction to match your destiny. That takes courage. Jim Rome, if you don't like where you are, change it. You're not a tree, okay? And, you know, my fraternity brother, Michael Jordan, he shot a whole bunch of shots, but you got to take them in order to miss them, because you're going to make some of them. Now, I'm going to close, okay? But I'm going to say this. Survey, survive, and succeed, okay? It pains me as I watch people, especially, African-American males, deal with the present situation, okay? And one of my goals was that at the end of this presentation, you all could no longer say, I had got nothing to lose. All you can say now is, I got everything to gain. So what do I mean by survey? When you get in a situation, especially with police, keep your mouth shut. Be polite. Survey the situation. Because see, in order to serve, you got to survey in order to survive. You got to make a decision. Remember I talked about adaptable behavior. This is where you apply that. And last, succeed. Well, if you don't survey and you don't survive, you'll never succeed. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a plum-pleasing pleasure and profusely profound privilege. I am done. I really appreciate this. Thank you very much.
Assistant Solicitor General in Clayton County State Court, where he manages the fair prosecution of thousands of criminal cases a year, having received numerous awards from the legal community and from civic associations. Attorney Gamage believes that the most important role of a prosecutor is to truly seek justice, which often means creating alternatives to traditional prosecution. Prior to becoming a prosecutor, he served as a Fulton County public defender, where he successfully defended thousands of criminal cases over the years. Attorney Gamage conducts legal workshops for young people to help them avoid problems with the criminal justice systems. Please join me in welcoming Attorney Keith Gamage.
Good afternoon. Wow, I love that enthusiasm. Just struck me right in my heart. Let me first give thanks to the Lord for bringing us here today, for awakening us this morning. Thank you for the folks who made it all possible, Ms. Barnes, and for the teachers, for the administrators, and most importantly, for you young folks who are looking to be empowered and looking to be fed, and looking for some spiritual food. Thank you. I'm probably much like many of you all. I'm a native Atlantan. Grew up in East Point, Southwest Atlanta. Matriculated through what became Tri-Cities. Was Woodland High School when I was a young person. Had the great honor of going to Southern University down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, earning my Bachelor of Arts there, and then on to Southern University's Law Center, where I became a lawyer. Kind of was recruited to serve as a public defender, always really out of a spirit of service. Represented a whole lot of people who find themselves in a whole lot of very terrible situations. Many of them alleged to have committed murders. Many armed robbers. Most of the folks charged with armed robbery were about 17 to 22 years of age. Many of them unfortunately spent a minimum of 10 years in prison. Some of them are still in prison. I left being a defense attorney and became a prosecutor. I was recruited to become a prosecutor out in Clayton County. Kind of worked hard, rose through the ranks, and now I serve as chief assistant prosecutor. What that manage an office of prosecution in which we prosecute And by prosecute, I don't simply mean throw people in jail. We look at, digest, and appropriately determine what the appropriate measure of punishment, if at all, is for about 50,000 criminal cases a year. I want to put you really in the middle of a situation. Rather than give you a bunch of information related to statistics, I want to take a police report that recently was on my desk and kind of break down to you some of the mistakes that the folks who were caught up in this particular situation made, and tell you about the outcome and how it can empower you. Street smarts is the topic, but I'm going to do it in kind of what I think is a novel way, and I'm going to start by reading a police report. There's some very bad language, and so I'll skip over that, but I'll say enough for you to understand what was said. And let me do this first. We're here at Morehouse. 14-year-old, name the person who's 14 years of age, Atlanta, former mayor, when they entered Morehouse. Anybody knows I got $10 for you to do. Somebody, young man, you raise your hand. Good try. Let's do a question. 14-year-old became a mayor in Atlanta. Entered Morehouse College at 14 years of age. Let's keep protocol. Who raised their hand? All right, come on up, get this $10. We're all told that knowledge is power. That was an example of it. September 12, 2015, about 4 a.m., units were dispatched to Northside Drive, an apartment building, Unit 300, in reference to a loud party or disturbance. Upon arrival, Sergeant Hess approached the front of the building, and I, this other officer, approached from the back. I noticed a heavy odor of burnt marijuana emanating from the apartment and exuding out from underneath the door. I also noticed 4 males, 3 black and 1 white, running down the steps from the 2nd floor. I announced myself and made contact with one of the males. Then that male and all 4 fled together into an apartment or to an apartment. I arrived at that apartment. I announced myself again as a law enforcement officer. I smelled the strong odor of marijuana, and I began knocking loudly on the door. I could hear inside the apartment toilets flushing, and I could hear an aerosol-type air freshener being sprayed. I could hear people moving around the inside of the apartment. I announced to the other occupants of the apartment that I had a maintenance man on the way with the key. So what we have is these folks who are at a loud party. They flee from the party. Law enforcement officers are there because of the loud disturbance. Undoubtedly, neighbors or somebody in the community has called the police to their location. 4 young men flee into an apartment. Inside the apartment, they're hiding. Cops knock on the door. They smell what they believe is marijuana coming out of the apartment. While the officers are knocking on the door, they begin to engage the people on the other side. They begin to say, open the door, we're going to get somebody here to open the door if you don't. Okay? About 10 minutes passes, and then the law enforcement officers convince a young man to come to the door. Here's what happens. The door is answered. A young gentleman by the name of Justin, the person that I saw in the breezeway, opened the door. He was immediately placed into custody. He was handcuffed behind his back. The cuffs were double locked and secured. After going into the apartment, one black male I had seen earlier was found hiding in the right rear room. Another male was found hiding in the front left bedroom. A 4th male, who I also saw flee into the apartment, was found hiding in the bathroom in the rear. All were placed into custody. All were handcuffed. All were secured. As the officer went through the rest of this apartment, located not far from Morehouse College, there were additional females asleep in the room. Also, there was a female and a male found together in the rear bedroom. Inside the common area of what this officer calls the quad, on the coffee table, I found marijuana in plain view. And on the stove, I found the remnants of a blunt. He described it as a marijuana cigarette partially smoked. He also finds that the room is reeking of burnt marijuana and that there is a smoky haze in the room. The leader of this group, we'll call him Jerry. Jerry thinks he's a tough guy. And so when the officers get into the apartment and they start putting folks in handcuffs, Jerry steps up and starts being very profane to the law enforcement officers. There are about 5 law enforcement officers inside of the apartment. Jerry says, "What the hell are y'all doing up here in my house?" Law enforcement officers say, "Well, we smell marijuana. We're close to a college campus. We got a call because of the loud noise." And they begin to give the other reasons why they are there. Jerry says, "I don't give a F. You MFs are cowards, and that's why you are police officers. In fact, you're the type of guys that when you're all at work, I'm sleeping with your girlfriends and wives." Now, let's do a little bit about Jerry. Jerry's a college student. He plays on college basketball. Okay. Law enforcement officers continue to search this home, and they find a sawed-off shotgun, which is illegal. They find a little bit more than an ounce of marijuana. How many people, you all remember how many people were in the room or in the house? Total of 4. You know how many went to jail? 4. And so, what I want to talk to you about is the 4th Amendment to the one. 4th Amendment to the United States Constitution tells us that we have a right to be free from unreasonable search. Does anybody think the search or the entry of that home was unreasonable? Why not? So, smell marijuana, right? That means by smelling that drug or the scent of the drug, that armed the officer with what's called probable cause. Probable cause means in a nutshell that you have a crime that is likely to be committed, that is in the process of being committed, or has been committed. So if it's burned marijuana, that would suggest the crime has been committed. If it's burning marijuana, that would suggest that it is being committed. That armed these officers with the right to enter the home. The other thing is that when the officers were there, somebody opened the door, right? Let them in. After they tried to conceal the evidence by flushing it down the toilet and by spraying the aerosol cans. What I want you all to know is this. There's so many different stories, so many different cases that I've dealt with. I want you to at least leave here understanding what the 4th Amendment provides and what your rights are, because it plays into street smarts. Most of the situations where we see a law enforcement officer taking the life of a young man, oftentimes they look like me, right? Look like us. Am I right? Well, it's because a lot of times the police are scared of the people who they're dealing with, because very often they deal with real criminals out here. And then when they encounter somebody who's not a criminal, that person who's not a criminal like you all, let me say this, the taking of those lives in my view are unjustified. Right? But we have to know how to counteract what society tells some folks about us. And so when you're in a situation with law enforcement, Dr. Harper said, keep your mouth shut. That's good advice. But there are also times when you want to open your mouth. Because, for instance, law enforcement officer comes up to you and says, "Hey, I'm looking for somebody who stole a football. Did you steal that football?" What's going to happen if you found him? What's going to happen if you keep your mouth shut in that situation? You got a football in your hand, what are they going to think? Right. But in your situation, somebody gave it to you, right? So there might be an opportunity for you to explain that. It depends. My point is to think for yourself. consider the circumstances and the situation and act appropriately. Yes, sometimes it's absolutely best to keep your mouth shut. But what you want to do is make sure that you let the law enforcement officer know that you're not a threat to them, that you're not somebody who's going to harm them, that you are a law-abiding citizen. One of the things about the Fourth Amendment is that we don't have to cooperate with intrusive law enforcement officers. By intrusive, I mean when they are trampling on our rights, our right to remain silent, our right to not offer evidence against us, or against ourselves or our friends or our families. But some of the principles that you have to consider. Think for yourself. Be disciplined. Be intelligent in the manner in which you engage law enforcement. By that I mean always be respectful. Yes, sir. No, sir. Never be profane. So in the situation I described, everybody went to jail. 3 of the cases were dismissed. The young man who became so irate with the police officer, not only did they bring him to jail, but they added additional charges. There were about 15 charges that could have been added based on that scenario. The people who cooperated got 2 charges. The guy who didn't and who was profane ended up with 15 charges. His bond amount was $75,000. He sat in jail for about 8 months waiting to come to court because his family could not afford the bond. When he came to court, he ended up entering a plea. He ended up, because it was a drug case, losing his scholarship and financial aid, because any drug conviction will cause you to lose financial aid or scholarship to college. And quite frankly, when I interviewed law enforcement officers after this incident, the gun was not used in any crime. They should not have had it. But the biggest problem in that scenario was the attitude and the manner in which the young man interacted with the police. Because what the law enforcement officers told me was this. They said, hey, these were all college people. They should not have been doing what they were doing. They should not have been engaged in drug use. They should not have fled when we arrived on the scene. They call that obstruction for running from police. It carries up to 12 months in jail. But what they said was this. It was that guy's attitude that made us decide to throw everything in the book we could at him. I had the really tough and difficult decision to make to decide how to handle those cases. The gentleman who I described, although he was in college, had 3 prior arrests, had been kicked out of 2 other colleges. And so he really had gotten to the point where he earned, unfortunately, the punishment and the sentence that he got. The other individuals, we were able to divert their cases, keep them in college, avoid them having a criminal record, gave them drug tests for the next 12 months, and after successfully being negative on all those drug tests and staying in school, their cases got dismissed. I want to just give you that brief scenario, but I wanted to have some time for questions with regard to the law. Any questions with regard to the law? It's a free lawyer day. Anybody have any questions? Young man? Stand up for me. Very good question. So the question is, if the police officer stops you from running a red light, do they have the right to search your car? It depends. So for instance, if the facts stop right there, then the answer would be no, unless there's something about the way in which you interact with them that gives them what's called reasonable articulable suspicion, which is a suspicion